I want to preface this review with a little bit of information about me. I've been playing Dynasty Warriors since Dynasty Warriors 3. I played it at a friend's house, and I loved it, been playing ever since. I've played every main series game since then, and most of the Extreme Legends and Empire spin-offs. I like the franchise, and I'm one of the people who defends it from the naysayers, that it's more than a button masher, that the story is quite fascinating, and it is not the exact same every time. But I can't defend Dynasty Warriors 9. I'll get the cat out of the bag right now. I don't like it. That doesn't mean you don't have to not like it. By all means, form your own opinion, I encourage it. But I can't let Dynasty Warriors 9 walk away scot-free and pretend that it's a good game and have everything be hunky-dory, because it's not. I'm sorry. This is the most boring Dynasty Warriors I've ever played. This is the most tedious Dynasty Warriors I've ever played. And this is the cringiest Dynasty Warriors I've ever played. But I won't lie, there are some things that this game does right, and I'm going to point them out because I think these things in particular deserve to be commended, even if I hate the final product. The open world. When I first heard Dynasty Warriors was going open world, I was excited, but wary. It was something they'd never done before, and I didn't really think a Musou game could work in a wide open world format. When they started showing footage, I was relieved. Somewhat. But a new, more menacing worry came to mind. We'd have this great big open world with nothing in it. Nothing to do, nothing to see, just filler. I can say gladly that this isn't the case, for the most part. First, the environments are quite fun to explore, and they vary well enough. It makes me honestly want to see another attempt at a Chinese setting open world, more in the lines of an RPG of some type, like Jade Empire. There's always battles to fight, camps to raid, animals to encounter, towns to explore, quests to receive, and more. It also helps that while exploring, it seems like there's always something right in front of you to collect and pick up, making finding materials for crafting much less of a bother than I initially thought it would be, and a lot more fun, too. Here's where things go south. Once the initial novelty wore off, it got repetitive, and then it got daunting. Many of the non-story quests are the same handful repeated over and over, just different locations for different rewards. Seems like there's the same camp battle every 5 feet, which makes the game just feel like a grind fest. But my biggest gripe, which I'm sure some will laugh at, and I encourage that, is the map is too big. It takes forever to get anywhere, even on horseback. Apparently it takes around 2 hours to go from one end of the map to the other. I didn't test that, and I really don't want to take the time to, but judging from how long it took me to complete Chapter 1, and most of that time was travel time because I really didn't fast travel, I don't doubt it. The size of the map makes traveling to locations a chore, especially when you're not having fun. And sure, there's fast travel, I know, but if you need to get to a part of the map you haven't discovered yet, you need to travel manually. And when the initial joy of a new game wears off and the fun starts to dissipate, it becomes a pain in the neck. Traveling to the next mission is something you dread. Sound and voice acting. The sound design is very good for the most part. Ambiance in the wilderness is great, and when you're not in battle and out exploring, you're treated to some very nice orchestral music that still captures the Asian flair with a modern twist that the Dynasty Warriors soundtracks has always had. No tune immediately stuck out to me in this game, I must admit, but I did have my music tuned low. I've been hard of hearing as of late and wanted to pay most attention to the voice acting. The English voices are atrocious in pretty much every case I heard, and it's a sin.
What are you? A bunch of imbeciles? Don't you get it?
More than once I emitted a painful groan when hearing the cesspit of auditory malice coming from a character whose voice at this point I had become so familiar with.
Huh. Now that you know who we are, you could at least return the favor.
If you remember when they replaced Zhang Liao's voice in 8 Extreme Legends, and how awkward it sounded, the English dub is like that, but on a massive scale. What's even worse is that the acting chops, pronunciations, and effort from this new cast is not up to snuff. Truth is, with Dynasty Warriors 8's cast, we came a long way from the atrocious voice acting the early games were known for. Many performances, while hokey, were good, with a level of charm and charisma to them. Quite a few of the voices had been around for years, and had become not only synonymous with their characters, but the actors themselves had an understanding of what they were portraying, built up from at least one game prior, if not more. With Dynasty Warriors 9, it's clear that no actor is familiar with the character they're voicing. No one has good delivery. Several times they say even the simplest of names in terms wrong.
I hereby claim this area in the name of Ooh.
This is worse than a bad anime dub. Even that game where the voice director casted his family members has better voice acting. Because in that case, the quality of the acting matches the production value. Here, the quality of acting is so below the production level, it's pitiful. There is the benefit of being able to use both a Chinese and Japanese dub, both of which are much easier on the ears if you don't speak either. The Chinese dub, something I've wanted for these games for quite some time, I found to be very immersive. However, unless you're playing in the original Japanese, the lip syncing will be incredibly off. Something that wasn't a problem in 8, save for the CGI movies. It seems like they didn't even bother with this one. The presentation. This leads me to the overall presentation of the story. Gone is the well-framed and very animated cutscenes of yore, where character personalities shined from both the voice actors' performances and the on-screen animations. Now, shots are wide and boring, rotating around stationary characters in the middle of the frame. Characters act like robots. They repeat the same gestures until they pivot to stand awkwardly still to face someone else and do it again. Dialogue bounces back and forth between well-written and cringy, with nothing in between. And I want to highlight the difference between cringy and cheesy. Zhang Jiao, for instance, in the old games with his wailing voice and magic spectacle was pure cheeseball, yeah, but there was an on-screen presence that made him enjoyable. An inside joke that both you and the game were in on. He was laughable because he was meant to be laughable. Here, where Sun Jian draws a sword from nowhere while Zhang Jiao stands awkwardly still in a boring wide shot, not so much. Just compare the Wu openings from Dynasty Warriors 8 and 9 and see the difference in presentation for yourself. I'm gonna play both of them right now.
The wind has begun to blow.
The flagpole.
What's the matter, Handong?
Nothing. Well, the flagpole just broke in the wind. It doesn't seem like a good omen.
You're surprisingly sensitive. Quite unlike the side of yourself you show in battle.
There's no need to worry. The wind can blow as fast as it likes. All we have to do is run through the enemy even faster. Right, brother?
That's right. We shall become the gale that shreds Liu Biao.
It'll be fine. You can count on my father and my brothers.
Yes. Well, if you all say so.
We do. I'm expecting big things from you too, Handong. Now, Tigers of Sun, show the enemy your terrible claws!
We are up against 300,000 Yellow Turban rebels. Many of them are mere peasants, but that doesn't change the fact that we are greatly outnumbered.
Ha ha! It sounds like an impossible task when you say it out loud like that. It seems the built-up rage and frustration of the people have finally boiled over.
Sun Jian. He was said to be a descendant of Sun Tzu and served as the patriarch of the Sun family. His skill in battle led him to be known as the Tiger of Jiandong. He possessed tremendous loyalty to the Han Dynasty and helped raise troops in order to quell the Yellow Turban Rebellion.
My lord, this is not a situation to make light of.
Come on, guys. Battles are not fought on numbers alone. These rebels don't stand a chance against us.
Okay. If you can take on about a third of them by yourself, we should be set. Unless you're out there, it's easier said than done.
Cheng-Pu, there's no need to be so glum. We accepted this challenge because of the odds, not in spite of them. It is our goal to help the Imperial Army and protect the Han Imperial Court. The Sun family is the spear of the Han. It is times like these when we are needed the most.
8 is much more cinematic. It comes across as robust and nuanced, something with care and attention put into it. 9 comes across as stilted and barren, as characters stand in a circle and discuss, turning their whole bodies to face one another like janky animatronics. There are a few scenes that I saw that are well done, such as Lu Bu's appearance at Hulao Gate, which was enjoyably action-packed, but these are few and far between. It got to the point where by the end of my playthrough as Sun Jian, I was just skipping cutscenes. I couldn't suffer through them anymore. I even skipped his ending. At that point I didn't even want to see it. Technical competency. The game is a mess. The frame rate is never steady, though this is a sad truth every Dynasty Warriors game has had to endure. Textures are sometimes embarrassing for a game made in 2018. Things phase in and out of existence all the time, especially in the distance. The character designs are all excellent, however, and at least capes don't clip through horses finally, so I guess that's a plus. There is an audio issue where dialogue will just completely cut out, or not play at all.
I hereby claim... Sure.
This and the frame rate problems I'm not too concerned with, as Koei has a history of being very receptive to doing their best to patch these things, and one is already in the works. However, there are simply some things that can't be patched. And that leads me to the gameplay. The new combat system isn't as bad as the Renbu system from 6, but it's not fun. It's all style and no substance. Every battle, you approach the same way, same pattern. Hold triangle to charge in, press square to do some flow attacks until you start getting blocked, then hit triangle or use a trigger attack to break guard. Rinse and repeat. Eventually you'll be able to one-shot your opponent with a button prompt, which always seems random and plays by its own rules. In the prior games, combos, while simplistic, had a level of depth to them. It was like a fighting game light. There was a charm to seeing what you could chain together and what best followed up your attacks, what you could pull out of your ass, and how long you could keep that juggle going. Now, where anything just chains into everything else, aside from knowing when to guard break and when to block, there's very little to explore. This boring combat system comes coupled with the fact that it seems to take way too long to kill enemy officers, even when grossly overleveled compared to them. A nitpick, I'm sure, but I was having so little fun I eventually turned the difficulty down to beginner. Not because it was hard, but because it was taking too much time out of my life. And even towards the end, when that was getting too slow for me, I resorted to spamming my fully charged stun trigger, because it did the most amount of damage in the shortest amount of time and was unblockable. Using the bow, while cool at first, is rather clumsy. For one thing, the aiming is off by a fair degree. Also, your view is severely hindered by the over-the-shoulder view, it's way too close. I would have preferred the bow as just another moveset, to be honest. As far as using fire arrows for exploding things, Breath of the Wild already did it, and it did it better. I'm sorry. Bows are only useful during stealth sections, which I admittedly have always hated in games, and are something I also always felt never belonged in a Warriors game. Bows do make hunting animals a cinch though, and one of the things I do like is that tigers and bears are now threatening, instead of laughably weak like they've been in prior games. Horse riding is nice, and horses feel like they have weight to them again, instead of feeling like they're on ice skates. This means they can be cumbersome to make sharp turns though, which is mostly because horses have only 2 speeds, light speed and ludicrous speed. Some things never change. During the course of your playthrough, you'll do side missions, which shave the difficulty off the main mission. and it will include a bar that shows the balance of power growing ever in your favor as you hurtle towards the chapter's finale. However, it never seems to have any impact. Morale for your forces at the start of every battle is low, enemies still take forever to kill, and it feels like what you did had no effect whatsoever. I eventually just decided screw it, and rushed towards the enemy commander both times. I didn't want to deal with it. I grew very bored very quickly during my 6-ish hours with the game, to the point where I just wanted to finish Sun Jian's story so I could do something else. Anything else. And then I have other nitpicks, which at this point is just the caveats of the open world genre, and is something I think the genre needs to evolve from. And Dynasty Warriors 9 unfortunately fell into the trap of emulating them. Things like climbing towers to reveal your surroundings, scaling vertical surfaces being a major gameplay feature, heavy focus on crafting and being a collectathon. All cliche, all tired, and all done to death. It's a perfect kind of irony that Dynasty Warriors, a franchise often accused of refusing to change or evolve, in an attempt to change, turned to a genre that also refuses to change or evolve. Now, I'm sure it won't surprise you that I don't recommend Dynasty Warriors 9, and I regret my purchase. But what I do recommend is that you take the time to do a bit more research into the game. I could be wrong, and it could be a good game to you, and it just isn't the game for me. My one word of advice, though, is to always think with your head first, and don't let blind fandom guide your wallet. It's how you get burned.